Hi, everybody. This is Jim Cornette, pro wrestling legend, and you're listening to the Book in the Territory Unprofessional Wrestling Podcast.
This is the artist formerly known as Daryl Van Horn, James Mitchell, the Sinister Minister, and I'm here to let you know I would rather slam my cock in a car door than to miss the dulcet tones of Hard Body Harper, my illegitimate son, on Booking the Territory podcast.
Welcome back, everyone, to this week's episode of our Smoky Mountain Rasslin podcast. This is Smoky Mountain Wrestling, episode 187 from August the 26th, 1995. And this is Booking the Territory, the unprofessional wrestling podcast, where today I'm sitting here once again with Doc Turner and Bobby Blaze. Bobby, what's going on, man? How you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. Glad to be back on the show. I appreciate it very much. Looking forward to it.
Doc, what about you, man? You hanging in there? You living a dream?
I definitely live in the dream, as always. Got a big day planned with broads and beer and all that kind of stuff. But let me just say this. Bobby's been on. This is his fourth episode. We've been. I would assume there's been a big reception from the fan base because it's a different kind of analysis that we're getting. How's the reception been to having Bobby on the show?
The people love Bobby. Look, how can you go wrong? You got a former wrestler for the promotion that, Doc, you and I have dedicated the last 4 years of our off day from work to cover. So, they love Bobby.
I'm not trying to throw shade at other podcasts. I'm just saying that we're blessed to have a guy that was in there, that was in the locker room, that can give us some of the details without, getting himself in trouble. And one of the things that we do want to talk about here today is sort of a wrap up from last week. We didn't have time for it because the shit was so hot last week but we don't want to gloss over this. At the Super Bowl of Wrestling, Bobby, you wrestled Dan Severn. Wow. That makes you the bravest person in here by far. So, did Dan? We'll just start off by asking: did Dan know that it was a work?
Well, thanks again for having me back on the show. I'll say this: you could have put I worked with Severn in Charlotte in May of that year, and I'm not so sure he did. But yes, we had a gentleman's agreement. I say it jokingly because in Knoxville on that show, you could have put that match on that last week's program we spoke about, and it would have taken anything away. It would have added to it because it was that good of a match, to be honest with you. If you go to on YouTube, both matches are on there. If you go to Bell Bobby Blaze on the YouTube channel, I'm actually giving commentary from both matches. I'm going to give a shout out to Wide Men Can't Jump podcast because they've got it on their Patreon. It may be free now. Severn and I do a 30-minute interview with each other. Here it is 25 years after the fact, and we talk about and we break down the match and talk about what took place. In Knoxville, Dan and I had worked out together the night before, not in the ring, but on the mat in the weight room, done some running. We trained together, basically. And by that point, he had several more matches than what he had at the Charlotte match. In Charlotte, we had about 8 minutes, I think it was, and a lot of it was just get out of different things because he was already countering every move I was doing. So I was like, when we would come to Knoxville, we just basically had a gentleman's agreement. And I just said, look, just a straight shoot. I said, look, man, I've been here for 3 years now. I've been over here. I said, I've been on TV. I've been their champion. I said, all we have to do is I want it to be as solid as you want it to be. Like he used to say, I could work a shoot or I could shoot a work. Well, one thing you don't want to do is fucking get in there and shoot with a guy that just won UFC title, and is also known as the Beast. The thing is I said, if you just give me a half a second instead of countering, because you already know what I'm doing, let me actually apply. When I do go behind you, if I get behind you, let me get behind you. Let me stay there for a second, slow it down just a bit. And as far as the kicks and the punches, I kicked them pretty hard in the ribs several times. through the match. He kicked me a few times. We didn't punch each other in the face, but we delivered some serious forearm blows to each other. And it was, like I said, it was a gentleman's agreement. And while we was in the ring, it was completely professional. I noticed on the tape, I think we're going to see from the Super Bowl, where I saw it last one, I'm not sure which one. Jimmy Suzuki was there, who was a photographer from Japan, and him and Dan Severn and myself, a couple other people, actually went out and done some pictures and ate dinner together after the Charlotte, match. And I stayed in touch with Severn, and then I got to work with him again at this Super Bowl. And I think, Jimmy has said it. He said, he thought I was the only one on the roster that could get in there and mix it up with Dan like I did. And it's really hard to pull off the kind of match. If you have a chance to go to YouTube and watch it, do so, because it's really hard to pull off that kind of a match. And I go for he goes for an armbar that he beat me with in Charlotte that I escape, but in this time in the second match I go for a clothesline, which I'd given him one from hell earlier, but he turns it into a Fujiwara armbar, and I really thought, this guy's going to rip my fucking arm out of my socket and beat me over the head with it. But that wasn't the case. We had a working agreement, a gentleman's agreement, and it was a solid match. And I tell you, here it is at Super Bowl Wrestling. I'm just going to tell you, and then I'll get off of it. Place is packed. A little bit different kind of match because it was honestly worked like a shoot. We didn't use the ropes. There was knees. There was some suplexes, some kicks, forearms. Like I said, when I got through the curtain, there was a monitor in the back, and I walked in the back and I walked down the middle curtain as opposed to the way used to baby faces come out one side, heels the other. On the Super Bowl, I walked down after the match through the middle of the curtain and turned to my right, to which would normally be the heel side at the Knoxville Coliseum. And there was Buddy Landell sitting there at the monitor and Jim Cornette standing right behind me. And I remember coming through there, and several people was like, good match, and Buddy turned around and he started clapping. Him and Cornette started clapping. And Buddy said, my God, Bobby, you got to send that match to Japan. He said, people's got to see that match. And here he is, we already talked about last week's, program. He's getting ready to wrestle HBK or whatever. But he was watching the monitor and watched that match. And never forget that he clapped his hands when I come through there and said, Bobby, that was a hell of a match. And he was standing right by Cornette. And I shook both their hands. I thanked them. And I was actually just kind of waiting for Severn to come through and thank him. That was kind of what was going on. But when your peers, when you come through there and your peers are looking at you and they take the time to acknowledge you just had a great match, it really means that it meant so much to me then, and it means even more so now that I can look back at and say, that I had this tremendous match with Dan Severn, and we turned it into something really, really good. So much so, like I said, here just 25 years later, that we had a 30-minute interview of each other, and they've got it up on the internet now on YouTube, and I just commentate through it, and there's interviews out there where I do it, and I won't go into a great interview because this show's not about me today. It's about Smoky Mountain Wrestling, and we're going to watch this episode, and we're going to enjoy it, man. But thanks. I'll never forget the Super Bowl Professional Wrestling, and to say what we talked about last week, I did have to go home that night after the show because I went home, Dan Severn and myself, we went out to eat with Jimmy Suzuki and several other people. So there was no ring rat shenanigans after that. I had a wife and child at home, guys. And so I was strictly business, just we had a gentleman's agreement. We went out to eat, got our room. When the time come, we got the next morning, ate breakfast, and we went our separate ways, We'd actually made travel arrangements together, and so the way he lived up in Michigan, the way he traveled, he came through here. We hooked up, and then on the way back home, I'm not giving any great secrets away, not breaking kayfabe or anything, but we stayed all night after Super Bowl. We had our dinner, got up the next day, ate breakfast, and we traveled back home. So no good rat story from the Super Bowl of wrestling, just so you know. But nothing but respect for Dan Severn, especially in the ring. That we got to pull off those two matches. That Cornette had enough respect and confidence in me to put me in that situation, and also as I look back on it now, and I've watched it here just in the last few months, because I had to do another interview where I promoted. I have to say it's a very proud moment in my life, and also it shows you know how you say, what's that? You know, not going to toot my own horn, but toot toot. It shows what an athlete I was, and also what a tremendous wrestler I was at one point in my life. And I don't say that lightly, because I usually like to joke around about it, but it shows what kind of athlete I was and what kind of wrestler I was. And we'll just leave it at that. But thank you for letting me get that out there to your BT fans. I hope you all, you know, enjoyed the story. But that's straight shoot, man. Gentleman's agreement.
And Bobby, it's in the book, right? You got this in the book, right?
Yes. The first match is in Pin Me Pay Me is about the Charlotte match. Right. That's the one where I make the joke where, you know, I wonder if he even knows this is the work. That's the truth, you know. And then, you know, Cornette, you know, took care of me on the show, and I like, you know, who's working who here, who's ribbing who here. So yeah, that whole story about Severn is in the first book. In my second book, I kicked out on 2, the educational wrestler, where I'm smartened up a little bit. You'd think I put in the second match about Severn and myself. So do yourself a favor and either go download the book or order it using your BT&T, you know, URL site. You can get it out there for a plug, Mike. But yeah, both stories are in both books, and Pin Me Pay Me is story 1 about the match in Charlotte, and I kicked out on 2. It's about the match that we're going to talk about. I just now talked about rather in Knoxville with Dan Severn. So I'm thankful we had a gentleman's agreement, and I'll leave it at that, because I'm not climbing in some UFC cage with him.
Oh, God.
And you can find those books at tinyurl.com/BTT Amazon. I kicked out on 2 and Pin Me Pay Me. You can find them in there. Again, it's tinyurl.com/BTT Amazon. Bobby, thank you for sharing your story about Severn from the Super Bowl of Wrestling. And you're right. I agree. I think I would have thought the same thing. He's going to rip my arm off and beat the shit out of me with my own arm, which is double insulting. But again, the man did business. You did business. And that's why it's called Pin Me Pay Me. And that's why it's called the wrestling business. Don't work yourself into a shoot. And you definitely didn't do that. You went along and you did business, which was a great thing. So really, really great story. And if you want to hear more, again, go buy both of Bobby's books, Pin Me Pay Me, and I kicked out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler, at tinyurl.com/BTT Amazon. Doc, you got any follow-ups for Bobby there? Or you want to jump into this episode as we hit the cliff?
No, that's great. And, you know, so while Bobby didn't have sex with a squirter last night that we know of, Harper can't tell that story. So we're glad to have Bobby on board for this, because Harper can't be here. And now I think it's time that we turn our attention to Fire on the Mountain, better otherwise known as Bradamania, I think. Because if you don't like Brad Armstrong, this may not be the episode for you.
Well, if you don't like Brad Armstrong, the end of Smoky Mountain might not be for you. Not that I want to run anyone off or anything, but yeah, if you don't like Brad Armstrong, as we kick off episode 187 from August 26th, 1995, I don't know what this show's going to do for you, to be honest. But let's get into it. Shout out to Disrespectfully Classy, Marky Blassie, Kyle Riley, Mike Childry for your generous patronage each and every month. We definitely appreciate that. We are Freedom Hall. We're at Freedom Hall, Johnson City, for Fire on the Mountain 1995. And at the very beginning of this episode, we get Les and Chip. Kessler welcomes us in and tells us we'll see Fire on the Mountain today from 95. Chip reminds us that the Smoky Mountain Wrestling heavyweight title was held up recently, and Brad is still going after it. Now, we saw Brad last week win a title. We are then thrown to Billy Jack versus Brad Armstrong from the Super Bowl of Wrestling that we talked about last week, which was about 30 minutes ago for us. Remember, Brad won, and he is that USWA heavyweight title holder now. Doc, I'll throw it to you. You got anything from the recap or anything?
So, once again, as another wrestler who has a reputation, Billy Jack is reputed to be pretty out there and kind of a, let's just say, bird of a different feather. He's still built here in 95, though. He's big. That mullet's a little bit of a problem, but the way he's got it cut, but he's still built. Bobby, you ever interact with Billy Jack?
No, you know, there in Knoxville, when I shook his hand, said hello, introduced myself, and he was off to himself. He honestly he stayed on the hillside I spoke about. You know, I spoke about everyone on the show, but yeah, no interactions other than, you know, hey, Bobby Blaze, nice to meet you. And that was it. He was still big, still strong looking, and someone he was kind of soloing it that night, if I recall, just kind of off to himself, like, am I going to do business or I'm going to kill someone? I don't know. Just he was over there in the locker room, just kind of minding his own business.
Yeah, he's made some outlandish claims over the years. We don't have to get into him here. Just, he's out there. Hey, again, at the Super Bowl, there was the false finish, but the crowd popped, crowd happy. There you go, Mike.
Yeah, I got no comment on Billy Jack and what he says. I'll just leave it at that. So then they show us, or Clip throws us to another match with Billy Jack from Memphis. We get to hear the great Lance Russell on the call. Billy Jack wins this one with a choke slam on Brad, and Billy Jack wins back the USWA title back in Memphis. So I guess I'll throw it to you, Doc, if you got any thoughts on what we saw here.
Love hearing Lance on the commentary. I love the whole idea of getting to see something that's happening somewhere else. Remember, even in 95, you weren't getting to see everything everywhere. You didn't have a YouTube or a network or anything else. One of the things I remember as a kid is one Saturday night on World Class here in Dallas, we had seen every iteration of the Von Erichs and the Freebirds here. But then they had a tape of a match from them getting it on in Georgia somewhere. And it just flipped the whole script. And because they were playing the state wars kind of thing, the Von Erichs were heels almost, if not completely. It's hard for me to remember. But it's like you're getting to see something that you don't normally get to see. You're getting to see an insight, a different angle at it than you normally get to see. And I really like that.
It was different back then when you got to see something like this. And like you said, we didn't have YouTube.
It was a treat.
It was definitely a treat.
I can log off here and go watch the rest of the day somewhere with relative ease Lance Russell calling matches until nighttime. But back then, this was the only way I was going to see this, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know what the TV coverage was in Tennessee, but watching it here, I can imagine it was pretty awesome.
You got any thoughts, Bobby?
I agree. It's great hearing Lance Russell. I was also a fan growing up that anytime they threw it to somewhere else, that was always a treat. And so moving on with, talking about maybe Georgia would throw something from Florida or NWA would throw something from here or there. But here, Smoky Mountain, again, seeing something different, but also hearing Lance Russell's voice, that was a huge pop for me because I'd totally forgotten when I watched it. And I was like, oh, that's great. The only thing I'll kind of say, as I mentioned last week, is you can see in a match, Billy Jack's just stiff and kind of awkward. He's a super fucking strong. But the one thing I want to say is, he chops Brad a couple of times, and Brad just shows true fire as a babyface when he come up a chop and a punch, and a chop and a punch just fought him right back into the finish. And of course, Billy Jack got the huge pop or whatever, but yeah, it was just one of those matches, kind of back and forth. But you could see Billy Jack just being Billy Jack. It looked like in a match, and Brad just being, smooth as he always was. But also, he showed some fire and like, fuck, man, I got to get this guy off of me. And he chopped the shit out of him back, and he punched him back, and it looked like they was going at it. And again, a good little finish, an old Memphis finish there. Where Brad runs in a Hildebrand, or Curtis jumps up on the apron there because it was still the East Tennessee versus West Tennessee, and now we're out in Memphis at the far end of the state. Returning a favor, if you will, title for title, and goes from there. And Billy Jack retains the USWA title, where he's working at mostly at that point. Again, I liked it, something different. Just overall good Memphis wrestling, good territory wrestling, good TV to get that, several different voices we've already heard just in the first 4 minutes of the program we're into there. Good stuff, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Good to see the change of pace. Something,
it just felt old school, and it just. I'll never forget, man. You'd get in '83 and '84. We'd get in World Class those either Harley or Rick sending in tapes before they were done in front of the old Mid-Atlantic background, and it's like, God, I wish I could see more of this. I would pay anything to see one full episode of this.
We've had the conversations before on the show. The old days when you'd be flipping through some channels or turning a knob, whatever you want to call it.
You catch some ding dong syndication show and the AWA's on for no reason, and you're like, holy shit.
Yeah, you thought you discovered the fucking pot of gold that was worth $500,000.
You go get that box of Cookie Crisps out of the damn pantry and sit down and start eating them and just watching some wrestling and getting started on your diabetes.
And you had no way of trying to figure out if next week it was going to be on at the same time. 9 times out of 10, you would turn to it and it wouldn't be there. Be like,
my family got the Sunday paper, so I'd get out the TV guide and just sit there and do through it. Because it wasn't like 200 channels. There was like 7. And I go, Dave, I could, hey, there ain't going to be no wrestling on Tuesday. So I can just skip to the days where I think it is. And I'd sit there and look for that shit.
New Orleans, we had 4, 6, 8, 12, which was PBS, and 26, which Mid-South came on. World Class came on 6, on channel 6. Like 5 channels, and I can remember flipping through the first time I discovered World Class. I was like, holy shit, is this going to be on every week? And sure enough, that
was on par with finding Scramble Vision porn, man. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
That was fantastic.
Yes, I agree. All right. Doc, you got anything from Brad's promo? I do want to play it if you've got something from it. If not, you just let me know.
No, go ahead. Whatever you want to do. You're in control, my friend.
So let's go to Chip Kessler. He talks about the controversial match with Brad and Billy Jack, and then we hear from Bob Armstrong about this. I said Brad, but I meant Bob. Here it is.
You can see, or I might add, could not see, because of the edited tape provided to us from the USWA, a very questionable victory by Billy Jack Haynes. The referee during the match was knocked out, and our own Smoky Mountain Wrestling senior official Mark Curtis attempted to enter the ring to count the pinfall that Brad Armstrong had on Billy Jack Haynes. However, Mark Curtis was detained at ringside, and Billy Jack Haynes took advantage of this situation to score a very questionable victory against bad Brad Armstrong. When we come back, our own commissioner, Bob Armstrong, with a statement about the USWA. We'll have more on Smoky Mountain Wrestling right after this. Well, fans, as promised, we're back now with Smoky Mountain Wrestling Commissioner Bullet Bob Armstrong. And in the wake of what we just saw concerning Brad Armstrong losing the title in the USWA to Billy Jack Haynes, we want to bring on the commissioner for some words. Mr. Commissioner.
Well, there's a lot of controversy between these two organizations. They're more or less at each other's throat. Now, I didn't want to get drawn into this, but I have. So I prepared a statement here, and I'm going to let you know exactly how I feel and Smoky Mountain Board of Commissioners feel about it. Smoky Mountain Wrestling has an open-door policy where a wrestler from any organization, if he has the ability, can come in and compete, but everyone who has to come to Smoky Mountain from the USWA, up to and including their vice president, Mr. Randy Hales, has come here to disrupt Smoky Mountain Wrestling, badmouth our fans, and cause trouble. When Smoky Mountain wrestlers go to the USWA, they are harassed by the USWA fans. They are treated shabbily by the promoters and officials of the USWA, and they have repeatedly been the victims of hometown decisions, which I do hate. Smoky Mountain Wrestling has no choice but to consider the USWA an enemy promotion. I wouldn't have it any other way as of now. If USWA wrestlers or Mr. Randy Hales himself want to come here, they will be warned and watched closely. And I, as Commissioner, give my permission to any Smoky Mountain wrestlers who go to the USWA to fight fire with fire and use their own judgment to protect themselves at all times. The end.
Thank you, Mr. Commissioner. As you can hear, fans, a lot of animosity between Smoky Mountain Wrestling and the United States Wrestling Organization, the USWA, and we'll be back with more right after this.
All right, Doc, your thoughts on Bob Armstrong declaring war?
All out war, pal. He's probably the only commissioner in wrestling that's going to roll out in a pink tank top, but are you going to call him on it? Nope. Yes, sir. That tank top looks great on you. Great color choice, sir. Bob Armstrong is the kind of guy, I don't know if this happens all around the country, but it's a kind of a Southern thing, I think, where he's like a friend of the family. And, we've heard Bobby talk well of the Armstrongs, and certainly Tracy is as well. But this is bigger than just wrestling. This is like he's the I wouldn't say community leader, but he's got clout. And so you're a family friend, and like I just need some advice about life, and I'm 45. I could just be like, hey Bob, come by. I just want to sit with you for a little bit. And we might sit at the dining room table and have a cup of coffee. And he's just like, son, tell me what's going on. And then he, he'd sit there and take it all in and go, well, as I see it, you got one or two options here. And I just wished I had Bob Armstrong in my life, because I think he could straighten me out on a few things. and I mean, we're all kind of Southern gentlemen here. That's kind of something that used to happen back in the day, is it not?
Bobby, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, man, that's very well said. Yeah, I think he's the commissioner for a reason, because he has just the way he comes across. He has that leadership ability to come across as, like you said, your community, in this case, the Smoky Mountain wrestling community, not only the wrestlers, but the fans. He even mentioned, hey, you're bad-mouthing our fans, So, yeah, he comes out there and he tells it like it is, man, that, this is the way it's going to be. And pretty much here's my advice, boys. If you come over here, you're going to be watched. We're tired of getting screwed around going over there. Some things happening, shenanigans and this and that. So, yeah, you're welcome to come in. But here's the way I see it. And pretty much like you said, Doc, you're sitting there at the table. He's going to say, here's the way I see it. And you're either going to say yes, sir, or no, sir, or take it or leave it kind of thing, because he has that clout. And I wanted to say this, too. You asked me a few weeks back about Chip. I noticed this episode, Chip Kessler steps it up a whole lot this episode. He's on point on this episode, and good for him. He needed to step up, and he has.
Good job,
the last
Chip.
few weeks of the programming, he really has stepped it up. But yeah, I think the commissioner out there and what he says is going to go, and he's sitting there reading a statement. He says the end, and that's what he meant. That's the way it's going to be. The end.
Period.
Amen. So yeah.
Okay, so
I agree.
As we transition to this scrum in the ring, I want to ask a question. And out there in the rings in 2020, have they figured out how to make a house mic understandable?
Bruh, you are the worst. Why don't you explain what is about to happen and then ask the question?
Well, I don't know what's about to happen, because somebody gets on a house mic and I hear...
Well, no, you do know what's about to happen, because Chip Kessler throws it to what's called a 6-man battle royal that Brad Armstrong is supposed to be in. And then for like 20 seconds, we go to Buddy on the house mic, but you can't hear a goddamn thing that's being said. The people react, but we can't hear nothing. And all I can make out of it is that Buddy tells Cornette something that makes the crowd pop. And then Brad eliminates himself, leaving all of Cornette's militia in the ring. But something said, and it's just confusing because we don't know. Now go ahead and say what you were about to say about the house mic.
I don't know. I mean, every time I've heard I've been to wrestling shows where I can't understand what they're saying in the ring. Every time we have a house mic here, it's hard. It's just a garbled mess. And I just feel like we need to clean it up and make America great again. I mean, make wrestling great again.
Come on.
I thought it was really slick for him to eliminate himself there and get over on all those guys and leave them holding their dicks in the ring. So I like that piece of it.
That's nice. Okay. Bobby, you got any thoughts on this? I mean, we really don't know what's going on because we cannot hear anything that's said.
Yeah. I just think it was smart that Brad eliminated himself. I thought that's good booking, man, because I'd forgotten what happened. I don't even think I was there at that show in Johnson City. I could have been. I can't remember. But, yeah, just smart the way he set it up, And, again, this is pretty much the Brad Armstrong show at this point, and it's going to continue to be. But and I don't know what was said. I can't remember whatever. But, yeah, just good booking. Just, obviously some heat with Buddy and Cornette. Said something like you said, it pissed him off and made the crowd pop. But Brad eliminated himself. I thought that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and remember, these are supposed to be dream matches. So from what I researched, this was the Punisher's dream match where it was going to be Brad in this 6-man battle royal, and you got basically Cornette's militia in there against Brad in this battle royal. Brad would be by himself, but Brad eliminates himself. But it's very convoluted. I don't even know how else to describe it other than say Brad eliminates himself. He leaves Cornette's guys in the ring, and Buddy's in there too as well. But it's just that's it. There's nothing else happened. So, Doc, you got any other thoughts before we go to the next segment?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, it's very weird. That's all I'll say about how this all goes down. Okay, so then we go to Brad Armstrong, who is about to take on a mystery opponent, and Cornette comes out and grabs the house microphone again and announces that Brad Armstrong will have to face none other than someone from the past, Primetime Brian Lee, which the crowd loves this announcement because I guess I don't remember the last time we saw Primetime Brian Lee. But Doc, any thoughts on this before I tell the folks out there how this thing ends?
Yeah, we've got the Jip Jiver Socializer Primetime Brian Lee back in the promotion. Man, he looks a lot different than he did in 1992, huh?
Yes, he does.
He's had a makeover. And this is, I mean, he hasn't been gone that long, but he's been gone a while. And it really does prove the point Cornette always says is how can I miss you if you don't go away for a while? He's infinitely more interesting walking in as the special guest than he was in his last year and a half in the promotion.
That's nice, Doc.
It's not his fault. He probably didn't have anywhere to go. I mean, there's no other feds. That's what I'm saying is we've been treated the last couple of weeks to all this inter-fed trade of talent, different looks. We love territory wrestling. That's what made it more interesting is that there were different flavors of ice cream to sample. But where do you go when there's nowhere to go? I mean, you go to Portland, you go to USWA, you work for Vince, or you work in Atlanta or Puerto Rico or Japan. And that seems like a lot, but not compared to 10 years earlier or 11 or 12 years earlier.
Yeah, I agree.
And so and so what I wonder is can you imagine we talk about Corny not having this or that and a wrestling drought, a recession all over the business and the industry. But imagine if Corny had other feds to deal with and work with and trade talent with, how much better everything becomes overnight.
Oh, different landscape altogether.
Different landscape, right.
Yeah, I agree.
mean, he pulled off what feels like Hail Marys with Vince and getting his talent and trying to do it the way it was done before. But that network, that Underground Railroad had been demolished. And so there's that. I will say this. I don't know if Bobby will get this. I know Harper would get this. I think Bobby would get this. Primetime Brian Lee in the ring looks like the singer from Dangerous Toys, if you remember that band.
You know I ain't got a clue.
You haven't. They had a song called Teasing and Pleasing, and I wish we had Harper here to sing it because they were probably on a package tour with the Bullet Boys because it was about that time. So go out there. His name the singer for Dangerous Toys' name was Jason McMaster. So you can go check my math on that if you don't believe me. Man, Brad is still over. You see that crowd pop when he won. And in a minute at the end, we do get the Road Dogg, the D-O-double-G, to come out and help out.
Thanks for getting the finish, Doc. You saved me some trouble there.
Hey,
Bobby, do you have anything else from this one?
I'm here to work for you.
No, it was great seeing Primetime back. Obviously, like you said, he changed his look. Looks great. Huge pop when he comes out. He's over. Gives someone a heated, gives Brad the heated heel to work with. He misses a knee, Russian leg sweep. Brad floats over like only Brad can, And then, of course, Primetime earlier in the match had done that shoulder breaker, and then afterwards he gives him that shoulder. He posts him outside before Road Dogg makes the save, and that was good to have one or two. Your brother's coming from the back and kind of making a save because Brother Brad still has a long way to go for the rest of the night, kind of thing. But I thought it was a good surprise to have Primetime back. I know Cornette has that saying, and how can I miss you if you're never gone, and Primetime, been gone for quite a while at that point. So the fans welcomed him back. It gave Brad a worthy opponent, and they had a good match for it, and leads to the next match, man. Good stuff, man. Good to see Road Dogg out there. He had been there early on in his career as Dark Secret or whatever. And then, he came back a couple of times, just hung out because his brothers were working. But to actually be out there and make a save on his brother there at a show was really good. So some exchange of talent, and it's all good, man. Like I said, it's kind of the Brad Armstrong show at this point still, and will continue to be.
Yeah, Brad wins, like Bobby said, hits the Russian leg sweep. He pins Primetime Brian Lee, and Road Dogg does have to save Brad at the end there, but he does. And then we go immediately to the next match, which is, again, we said it again at the beginning of this episode. This is the Brad Armstrong show. Brad Armstrong takes on Buddy Landel for the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Heavyweight title that is held up. And there are also lumberjacks outside of the ring with tennis rackets. I wanted to point that out. No Cornette at ringside, but I'll just wanted to mention that. So until the very end, that is. Corny tries to help. I'll recap and then I'll throw it to you all. Corny tries to help Buddy and he throws in the racket. Buddy throws the racket to the side and says, "No, I don't want your help," because remember, that's what he told Jimmy last time in that promo. He said, "I don't need your help anymore. Don't try to help me." But Brad ends up grabbing the racket and he hits Buddy with it. And Brad wins when he hits Buddy with the racket. By the way, the ref didn't see any of it, any of all that stuff I just described. Corny is not happy. Buddy isn't happy either. Buddy and Corny are arguing in the ring afterwards, and Buddy just barely stops short of hitting Cornette. But in the end, Brad Armstrong wins this match. Doc, let's go to you. Bobby, let's go to you first. What are your thoughts on this thing?
Oh, man, I go back to, first of all, being in that ring with Buddy in Johnson City in that same position where, just coming off of getting beat up a little bit like Brad had. You have to go right back in there and go at him. Buddy just takes over with the punches and the forearms and that knee to the gut that I mentioned before. He just does it. It doubles you over. He gives you that big right. Buddy obviously come to work this night, and that's cool. I think it's one of those things where when Cornette throws him at racket, and, of course, Buddy refuses to use it, it's just one of those things, and that baby face finally does something, like he's been pushed and cheated and screwed. Buddy doesn't want to cheat or doesn't want Cornette's help and this and that. In this case, Brad, though, he picks it up and he'll use something to his advantage. He's been fucked with, for weeks now, and he's been in the gauntlet matches, the battle royals and mystery men and this and that. He sees his opportunity. Boom, he pops Buddy with the racket. And the place goes nuts, even though it's a baby face cheating and win. There's something about it, like he gave him his just due.
Wait, hold on. Go back on the video. Go back a few seconds, Mike. When he after Buddy, right before Brad tosses the racket to back to Jim after he hits him, and then he did he give him the finger or whatever he did?
Yes.
An awesome little thing.
That's
Brad
where I was
did.
going to go to right there. Okay,
That
I was going to
just
say that
so
I had that
awesome.
written down. He hit him with the racket. Watch right here. We're watching it here. Okay, he gimmicks him. The ref doesn't see it. Buddy goes down, but he tosses it to him and flips him off. Like, there you go, fucker.
Man.
That's a huge pop, because Cornette's caught red-handed with the racket in his hand, like, he used it or what have you. And he's like, fuck you, Jack. And I think he does it one more time right there.
Yep.
Like, yeah, I outsmarted you. Fuck you.
Cherry on top.
Yes, I wrote that down. I put flipped off Corny with Buddy selling. Buddy's still down there selling, man. He's not involved in what the referee's doing, what Brad's doing, what Cornette's doing. Buddy's still laying there selling, getting over, the whole match, not just himself, but getting the angle over too. That was something I was going to say last week's show, and then again this week's show, even though we're watching basically, like we said, the Brad Armstrong show. The whole thing is, this is all part of a angles involving the entire promotion, and it all ties together so good. That's excellent.
I can't add anything to it. You are absolutely right with the way Brad did that. That was tremendous. Really good stuff. Doc, you got anything else? This was good.
I have one thing, and it relates back to something that Bobby said early on in the episode, which is that Chip really steps it up. Chip did something in this match that I thought was just awesome commentator work. So they're out there at the beginning and talking about Brad's shoulder, which was mysteriously better by the end of the match, but everything was airtight back then. But one of the things that Chip says is, he says something like, word must have filtered back to Buddy in the locker room about his shoulder being hurt. So he's like, Buddy's back there preparing for his match, but words filtered back to the locker room. This shit was being treated real, like that's something that could happen. It treated it like a sport. It just the little touches in this match are what made it great. From Armstrong Brad doing his thing, to Chip. Like, how did Buddy figure out that his shoulder was hurt? Well, how do you think he figured it out? I just thought that was really good.
Good stuff all the way around.
Yeah, that's good stuff. Yep.
Yeah, I can't add anything to it. Okay. Let's go now to Brad Armstrong after he wins the title. He's going to cut a quick promo in the back. Here it is.
Jimmy Cornette, there's a new general in town. His name's Brad Armstrong. I fulfilled my promise. I became the Smoky Mountain Heavyweight Champion. You know, the USWA belt was just snatched from my grasp, just snatched out of my hands, man. But the Smoky Mountain belt is home to stay with Brad Armstrong. So, Cornette, there's a new general in town. Send your troops, buddy. Trend them all in one by one. Because the bigger they are, the better they are, the tougher that makes me, because this belt's home to stay with Brad Armstrong.
Well, fans, as you can see...
Anything from that, Doc?
It's just solid. I mean, they do the perfect job of not overexposing him so that he's delivering the message. You know, early on in Saturday night episodes, you know, earlier in '88, they would send babyface Luger out there for 4 minutes, and it's like, Jesus. Oh no, come on. Where, you know, he's picked up his steam a little bit on our shows and actually delivered some good promos, but it was a lot of pain getting there. And it was just like, why did he have 4 minutes when he probably could have said that in 40 seconds and come off much better?
Yeah.
You know, there's the old thing about Brad being fantastic in the locker room, and then the red light comes on. He's great here because he's not trying to go for 4 minutes.
He had a good promo with him and Flair when they got into that conflict that time too, in like '87 or so.
He's really believable as a little bit tougher than white meat babyface, a little bit tougher than Bobby coming out there with his baby, you know, but not much. And just the all shucks. He doesn't have that. He's Southern, but he doesn't have that kind of smile and wink at you like Tracy does, where Tracy's got all the ladies thinking he's cute, you know, and Tracy's got that little wild streak sitting behind it that you can see. It's different.
Ages 8 to 80, blind, cripple, or crazy.
The grandma's like, you know, he comes over for dinner and he pulls out the chair for grandma, and she's all charmed and remember what it was like to get moist down there. And she's like, oh, you're such a gentleman. And while he's pulling out the chair for her, he's winking at the daughter that he's going to go bust guts out on later. So,
come on, grow up.
Well, the daughter's probably 38 and named Wanda, but she's still going to get hollowed out.
Okay. All right.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Bobby, you got anything before we move on?
Yeah, back to the promo. They played to Brad's strength. And now here's the thing. Brad had also been on national TV coming off of that to Smoky Mountain. And, of course, his family's known there, and he's worked there. But he's just over, and they play to his strength. And he is that, it's not the aw shucks. And it's not the white-eyed Southern boy. It's Brad. But, see, Brad, I think he steps it up because his body's just a little bit better, if not greater. He's like, man, he looks like a fucking athlete out there, you know. He's coming in, and he's ready to go for that title and get the title. And then when the promos come too, he's got that fire, just like when I talked about him firing up against Billy Jack Haynes. He fired back against Buddy there, you know, with the chops and the punches. He had to show that fire. And what he's doing in those interviews, whether it be 30 to 45 seconds, whatever, boom, he's hitting his spots. Last week it was a new sheriff, okay, when he won the USWA title. This time in Smoky Mountain, there's a new general. You know, he's got General Cornette out there. And he's, you know, like I said, he flipped him off in the ring. He won the title, and he's telling the people in Smoky Mountain, look, you know, I'm here. You can believe in me because this title's not going anywhere with Brad Armstrong. And he's showing that fire, and he's so believable as a baby face and as the champion. He's just over right there because they're playing to his strengths. Don't do 4 minutes, Brad. Give us 30 quick ones or give us 45 and get it out of there. And he does, and it's great.
I agree, Bobby. This was really tremendous, man. Good stuff. Good analysis there. So we go from that to Snow and Unabomb, the dynamic duo, versus the Thugs, where the loser of the fall is going to have to leave Smoky Mountain, and our special guest referee is Jim Cornette. Now, Cornette does grab the house mic and warns the Thugs that they better not put a finger on him as a special referee or else. So he says, or else. And he finishes with that. Cornette is given the slow count when the Thugs make a pin attempt, like every single time. Corny gets bumped during the match. The Thugs end up hitting Unabomb with a double shoulder tackle. Corny is knocked out, but guess what? We are saved by Mark Curtis, who comes in and holds Cornette's hands and physically slaps Cornette's hands down on the mat to make the 3 count with Corny's hand. The Thugs win when Unabomb is pinned, and now we are to assume, if the stipulation does hold, and I'm not saying it doesn't, that Unabomb has to leave Smoky Mountain Wrestling. Doc, go to you first. What thoughts did you have from this?
I guess Glenn Jacobs came in and said, Corny, I got to leave. I got to go to dentist school. What? Oh, Vince wants me to be a fucking dentist.
Yeah.
God damn.
Once again, Chili McFreeze, how close was this to all being a disaster?
Yeah.
I had a question, and Bobby, you may or may not know the answer to this, but was Dirty White Boy wrestling anywhere else besides Smoky Mountain at this time?
No, I don't even think he was doing any independence at that time. He might have done a couple shows. We all worked some shows, on our days off, but I don't know that he did, to be honest with you. And I don't think he went over. Some of the guys actually went over to Memphis for a couple nights, and I don't think he was making that trip either. So I do not think he was working anywhere else other than Smoky Mountain. I could be wrong. He might have done a, outlaw show here or there. What do you want to call it? Little show somewhere around Knoxville on a night off. But I don't know that for sure.
I was just asking because it's been a while. I mean, I like the Thugs and I like him and Tracy together, but it's been a while since he's been kind of featured prominently at the top of the card. And I was just wondering if that had anything to do with the fact that he was working other places and wasn't as available, but just a thought I had.
No, not that I know of. I think it was just the booking,
Okay.
Because he lived right there in Knoxville, so he was making every trip that was there. He was going to be on about every card that was available, but probably only for Smoky Mountain. So he's working, at least 3, sometimes 4 nights a week for them.
And Mike, are we to believe that Boo Bradley is gone, or is he still here?
I was trying to remember, man. We've made the joke for months now that Boo stuck around much longer than we realized, and I don't remember. I know I've watched these all recently, but I don't know. But I will say this. Once again, he lasts a lot longer than we all remembered.
Boo becomes balls.
Boo becomes balls. Wow. Gotta love us some balls. Balls Mahoney, that is. Okay. So, Doc, you got anything else from this match, or you want to throw it to Bobby?
I mean, no. This is 4 solid guys in the ring, and so it's maybe not always spectacular, but it is always solid, and it is again something that I like watching on these shows because it's a deviation from the squash match format.
Bobby's over there doing a hopper.
He's having a
Yeah.
fucking. Sounds like he's having a fucking home invasion.
Yeah, I was sitting there trying to readjust my chair, man. Shit.
Do you sit on the floor crisscross applesauce style like Doc does when he does something?
I'm actually laying flat because the floor is a rough motherfucker on my back.
All right,
Yeah.
Bobby,
I
got
was
any thoughts?
I was adjusting the pillow behind my back. I'm like, damn, it's getting tight here. No, it's a solid match. All 4 guys can go. I liked it with the Cornette being the referee. It was, obviously, something's up. And, of course, I thought they worked it out really well. The quick counts when the faces were down. And then, of course, the very, very slow count when a heel was down. And I popped at the end because Mark Curtis makes a save. Cornette's arm was out there, and they're doing their spots, boom, and his arm's there. And when Curtis comes through, man, and raises his arm and drops it back on the mat, I thought, that's just another good finish for the way the match went. Because the match was a good match. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was just a really good match because there's 4 guys out there doing their fucking job like they're supposed to, and they're working together, and they're getting a crowd behind them, and it's getting over. And Cornette's doing his thing, the quick count right there, and doing the slow count and blah, blah, blah. But, yeah, just a good match, a good fun match to have on a card. And, never know what's going to happen. And then at the end, here comes from the back, Mark Curtis, because Cornette's out. And he just picks up his hand, 1, 2, 3. So Cornette officially did count Glenn Jacobs out. And then like you said, you already made your deal about he's going to be the one probably leaving town, and he does. So good stuff, man.
Yeah, I like the fact that, Corny, here he is with the slow count and not wanting to count, anybody from the dynamic duo out. But at the end of the day, he can't even help himself because he's out cold or woozy, and Curtis comes in and literally, takes his hand and counts it out. It's good stuff, man. You got to enjoy it when they do things like this. So anyway, I enjoyed it. Doc, any other thoughts before I go to the closing promo from I was trying to wait to see the finish. Here it is where Curtis 1, 2, 3. The crowd pops. Look at him. Yeah, and Cordy has no clue what happened. That's the best part about it. The best part about that, he's clueless on what just went down, and that's one of the things we love about wrestling. So, okay. Doc, any other thoughts before we go to the promo from the Thugs?
No, sir.
All right, let's go to the promo from the Thugs after the match.
You know something, white boy? We overcame the odds, man. They had Jim Cornette as the referee in that match, but we beat Al Snow in Unabomber. We beat that Unabomber, and that big 6'8", 300-pounder is out of Smoky Mountain Wrestling forever. But now, the thing that we want, man, is those Smoky Mountain Tag Team titles back. But even the titles don't really mean as much as the fact that it's ringing those stinking 2 guys' necks, along with that Michelin Man, toy soldier Jim Cornette out there. You guys come out here, one of you is doing your hair like that, and the other one's doing his little dance. Well, you better strut your stuff because you ain't going to be strutting wrong, because you're looking at 2 guys right here that are hot on your trail, because we want them Smoky Mountain Tag Team titles back where they belong, around the Thug's waist. Right, white boy?
That's exactly right. What I want to do is I want to reach in real deep right in here, and I want to pull Jim Cornette's eye out, and then I want to shove it down his throat, and then kick him in the butt and send him home. And then what I want is I want to get Dr. Tom Pritchard. I want to shave his head. I want to stomp him into a pool of blood. And then I want to get toothless Jimmy Del Rey. And I want to get him down. And I want to spread his legs until I hear everything pop and he squeals like a woman. What's going to happen, Heavenly Bodies, and Jim Cornette, is the Thugs are coming. And it's not going to be pretty because somebody's going to get hurt. And pain is my game. I'm the master of hurting people. I've taught this man how to get mean and nasty. So, Heavenly Bodies, think about it. Do you really want to show up? Do you want to let Mama Cornette tuck you into something? You boys are going down, like it or not.
Well, fans,
I could have done without Dirty White Boy telling us he wants to spread Del Rey's legs until he hears something pop and squeals like a woman. Hard pass on that one, Tony Anthony. We love you.
I just hope that the popping there isn't Jimmy Del Rey's anal hymen.
Jesus Christ. What the hell? Oh, go ahead, Doc. I'm sorry.
Well, certainly wasn't scripted, huh?
Yeah, it was not scripted. Bobby, what do you think about this?
Well, I tell you, from watching his promos for years, I really think he gives a really strong promo. My problem with it is this: as graphic as he got, and it's not Tony's promos, Tracy's whatever, and then Tony works himself up to where he says these things that the thing is, I always thought that in a promo, you got to lead it somewhere that when a match happens, you're going to do it. And sometimes Tony's promos were so over the top that, and it was a good promo, a little bit out there, but he doesn't back it up when he gets to the ring.
he's not.
He doesn't do those things.
Right.
And that always bothered me. Even when I had my program with me, I'd be like, if you're telling people you're going to kill me, then fucking kill me already. You know what I'm saying? So he says all these great things about, he's going to rip his eye out. He's going to make Tom a pool of blood. And then he, do God knows what to make Jimmy squeal like a. But none of it's going to. He just didn't take it to the ring. The intensity of the interview didn't match the intensity of the work rate. And it kind of goes, and that's not a dig towards his work rate because he could work, and it's not a dig towards his interview because he could interview, but he needed to kind of put them both together, if that makes sense, to make it even stronger. I'll just leave it at that. But it did get over, and a lot of people probably did catch that. What he's going to spread his what? Squeal I think he is wanting to say like a pig or something out of Deliverance country there. I'm not sure, but yeah, like you said, obviously it wasn't scripted. But he about worked himself up until like a fucking Pentecostal preacher there. It sounded like.
And if he would have said squeal like a woman, that would have been fine. The problem was the preceding line was spread Del Rey's legs until he hears something pop and squeals like a woman. That was the one I was like, Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Like, I remember watching this the first time. I was like, oh, what did he just say? Rewind that. God, that was great in the worst way possible. Doc, you got anything you want to add for what Bobby said?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. All right. So let me get the next promo queued up. We got next. We got Jim Cornette, Tommy Rich, and the Punisher, who now they have something to say. This is the militia. We didn't hear from Tommy Rich last week, so let's see what's going on here.
We're here with General Jim Cornette, the Punisher, and Tommy Wildfire Rich. And General, I have to say, in the matters of things like the World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental title and the Smoky Mountain Wrestling Championship, things really aren't going too well these days for the militia.
Well, that's because I've had the wrong personnel. I've had the wrong troops involved. Buddy Landell has disappointed me. He's messed up for the last time. I am sick and tired of being humiliated by a member of the force that doesn't know how to follow orders. So what I have done, I've just taken some action moments ago. I've been talking to Wildfire. I'm busting Buddy Landell to a buck private, first of all. He's going to have to work his way back up through the ranks. Second of all, I'm sending all the other members of the militia after Brad Armstrong. Tommy Wildfire Rich has the sneakiness. Terry Bam Bam Gordy, he's got the strength. Al Snow has the speed. There's got to be some way that I can find the combination to take Brad Armstrong out. But as from now, Buddy Landell, like I said, is busted a buck private, and I am naming Tommy Wildfire Rich as my new top lieutenant. And I know that he is going to carry on the tradition of the militia the way that Buddy Landell should have. Buddy Landell gets no more shots at the title until he shows me that he has earned them. Right, Tommy?
Yes, sir. You know what it amounts to. Buddy Landell can't whoop where I've been, but you never tell a general nothing. The general realized the natural fact Buddy Landell's a loser. Tommy Wildfire Rich, I've held titles all over the country. So Brad Armstrong, you get your butt ready, boy, because when I come at you, I'm going to take the title back to Mr. Cornette.
That's exactly right. Hey, Buddy, you know what? I was just telling all the people here, I was telling Chip Kessler how that Smoky Mountain Wrestling refuses to give you any more shots at the title. I've been trying, I've been negotiating, I'm trying the best I can to get you another shot at Brad Armstrong, but they have refused to let you in the ring with him.
Listen, from this point on, leave all the title shots and all the wrestling to me. Because if you mess me up just one more time, you're going to look like Custer more than MacArthur. You understand what I'm saying?
Buddy!
Hey, General, it looks like there's a little trouble in the militia.
Don't try to instigate, Chip Kessler. You're nothing but an infiltrator.
All right, fans, we're out of time.
All right. Doc, your thoughts on Cornette, Tommy Rich, Punisher, and Budrow, who does a run in here?
Why were you so disrespectful a minute ago?
What are you talking about?
Okay, well.
Somebody say something about some fried chicken, cold beer.
That sounds good.
That was not me.
They're drawing this Buddy Corny thing out. We know where it's going to end, but we're on board for the ride. I assume, Mike, you have some thoughts on the drop down in quality from replacing Buddy with Tommy Rich?
No, I don't have anything to say about that. Whatever.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. No, I mean, this is a good little storyline that, what's going on with Budrow, and all of a sudden now he's quote unquote right now been demoted to buck private in the militia. I mean, it makes sense based on the conflict we saw earlier with Buddy and Jimmy. So no, I don't. I mean, it makes sense. I'm good with it.
Okay. All right.
Dang, you got nothing else, Doc?
It wasn't that long of a promo. What do you want me to say?
Oh, I thought it was actually good. Actually, I enjoyed it.
It was okay. Yeah.
The way Buddy came in after, and he's like, wait, Jimmy, what's going on? And Jim tried to make it seem like, oh, no, we're all good. So I don't know. What you got, Bobby?
I thought that was funny the way he, when Buddy comes out there and Cornette changes his tune all of a sudden. I like that, but Buddy just straight to the point, like no more, don't worry about title shots or matches or anything. Just leave it to me. You can see, I'm surprised he hasn't already turned, but I mean, we know the program is coming and you see it each week. And so we're spacing out, but Buddy says just enough to get over, man, that once again, true professional. He come out, said what he had to say. And, he turns around and they're all like looking at each other like, whatever, what the fuck, Buddy, But yeah, Buddy's the man once again. He just kind of comes in and like, hey, this is the way to leave the matches, leave the title, leave the matches to me. And if things, if you do interfere, he gives them that little general thing with Custard and MacArthur thing, and it's pretty good. It's short and it's good. Budrow said just enough, yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, that's I got pretty much the same thing. I thought this was solid. Real quick, so what they showed here was from Fire on the Mountain, 1995, Night of the Dream matches, which was August 12th of 95, Johnson City, Tennessee, Freedom Hall. Drew 1,900 people. I'm not going to run through the entire card, but I did want to mention something that Doc actually asked a second ago when he asked about Boo Bradley. Boo Bradley actually pinned Tommy Rich in a match where Bradley was blindfolded, and that was actually Tommy Rich's dream match. So technically, Boo Bradley, as of this night, was still here, Doc. So I just wanted to mention that. I won't run through the whole card because there are 11 matches here. There was, well, not 11 matches, but just call 11 segments. They have they consider Ron Wright's retirement ceremony. They put that as a bullet point in the result. And Ron Wright pinned Dirty White Boy that night because that was White Boy's dream match. Look, well, again, it was just kind of for show, and Dirty White Boy wanted to be out there with his mentor one more time. But I'll post these results in the Facebook group once this show drops, so there's that. But you had a bunch of different stuff, 1,900 people at Freedom Hall that night for the Night of the Dream matches. And with that said, we need to take care of some business and do the disability checks for this week's episode. Before I throw it to Doc, I want to remind you all, if you don't use our Amazon referral link, please use it, tinyurl.com/BTTAmazon, a great way to support the show without spending anything extra. Go buy Bobby Blaze's books, Pin Me, Pay Me, and I kicked out on 2, The Education of a Wrestler from Amazon. Again, it's tinyurl.com/BTTAmazon. Great way to support this show. You won't spend anything extra. We get a little bit of kickback in return from Amazon, so please use that link and give that link to the wives, girlfriends, hoes, side pieces in your life. Tell them to use it every time they purchase something from Amazon. Doc, I'll go to you first. How many disability checks are you going to give this week's episode?
This one was really difficult to rate, but at the end of the day, I came back to the idea that for the 44 minutes, I had a good time watching this. And there's angles going on that I'm invested in, and I like Brad Armstrong, so that didn't bother me. It certainly wasn't last week's episode, but as we discussed, not many are going to be. But this was good, and so for that, I'm going to say this was an 8.3.
All right. Bobby, what you going to give it?
I actually had written down 8.2.
All right, so we got 8.3 and 8.2.
Look at that.
I think this was a solid A-. It was a good episode. Nothing wrong here. I liked it. This was good stuff. So yeah, good stuff. And Bobby and Doc are on the same page. All right, let's do the Government Cheese Award. And before we do it, remember, if you're not one, consider becoming a patron, tinyurl.com/PatreonBTT. You get the video versions of these. You get tons of other audio from us at that link, like the WCW Clash of the Champions, the pay-per-views that we've done, along with 200 other Patreon exclusive episodes at tinyurl.com/PatreonBTT. Doc, Bobby, Harper, and I, we put a lot of work into this show. So if you appreciate that, consider becoming a patron even if you're just enjoying the free shows and you're like, I love this, but I haven't become a patron yet. Consider it. A lot of work goes into this. Again, it's tinyurl.com/PatreonBTT. Government Cheese Award time. Doc, you go first. Who are you giving it to?
I don't know how it could be anybody but Brad Armstrong.
Well, I was going to say the same thing. That's why I threw it to you first. So, Brad Armstrong gets the government cheese. So, and let me tell you, everybody, get ready and get used to bad Brad Armstrong in this promotion as we go through the end of it. Bobby, who are you giving yours to?
I was going to say, before you answered, that's who you was going to say, Doc. I was going to say, I have to say, 100% agree with Doc. It can't go to anyone but bad Brad Armstrong on this one.
Amen to that. Amen to that. All right, so we are just about getting ready to get out of here, but before we do so, I'll throw it to Bobby. Bobby, go ahead and plug whatever you got. Anything you want to mention, please feel free to do so.
No, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Doc. I appreciate you letting me be on the show, a part of this. I'm a fan and a friend of the show, as you know, and to all you great fans out there, please keep listening to it. I'm on social media on Twitter at BobbyBlaze744. You can follow me there. And I've loved this the last few weeks that I've got to be on here, and I appreciate the opportunity given to me to be on the program. I hope you fans have enjoyed it as much as I have, and I'm going to continue to join Booking the Territory. Thanks, Doc. Thanks, Mike. And hello to Harper out there, wherever you're at, brother. Thank you.
He's out doing scandalous things and grabbing light by the horns without condominiums.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Doc, you got anything before I go into a couple plugs we got to do?
Let's get the fuck out of here. How about that?
I'm done. Nice,
I got important things to go do today.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. Before we get out of here, shout out to the Wrestling Podcast About Nothing with ROH's Brian Malonis and Mike Crockett. They do their show every single Monday. Check them out. They talk classic, current stuff as well. Again, that's Wrestling Podcast About Nothing or WPAN, wherever you get your podcast from. And shout out to Our Vantage Point, the Retro Wrestling Podcast with Joe Murata and Michael Quinn, the northern version of BTT, slightly classier, a little bit more professional, but still fun nonetheless. They support us, so please support them. Give them a listen. Good guys all the way around. All right, Bobby, I don't have anything else, man. If you don't have anything else and you're ready to shut this thing down, you know how we do it when we get out of here. Why don't you hit that go home cue for us?
Book it, bitch.